It's early August, and after all the nice sun and lots of rain, the dahlias are coming into flower. In this episode, Geoff is going to talk to you about some of his favourite dahlias. If only I could find him. Geoff? There you are.
I'm going to talk to you first about the types of dahlias that I like. I like quite a wide variety actually, and so I'm going to talk to you about the different types, shapes and sizes, etc. You see, dahlias can get very large. This is a giant decorative called Hamari Gold. It's the first time I've grown it this year, and I think it looks quite good in the garden, don't you? The only trouble with giant varieties is that they do have a tendency to start dying at the back before they've even come out properly at the front. Then you've got more medium-sized dahlias like this one. This is another new one on me called Grace Wood. I think it's looking pretty good. There are lots of small-sized dahlias around, like this one called Happit Austria Flag. There's an abundance of miniature-sized dahlias on the market, like this Western Spanish Dancer and this Westerton Folly. And finally, folks, there's the pom-pom sort. Now, in fact, this one is not a pom, because a pompon, the definition of a pompon is a dahlia under 2 inches diameter. In fact, I choose not to grow pompons because they're so small. They have lots and lots of flowers, but you spend more time deadheading than admiring them, I find. But this year, for the first time, as an experiment, I've bought a couple of new varieties that are known as large poms. A large pom can have a diameter of up to 3 inches, so they should make more of an impact in the garden. Here's the first one. It's called Newland's Josephine. Nice colour, I think. And the other one is called Rycroft Blackberry, which is a very interesting colour. So far I'm quite impressed by these two. Now I'm going to talk about shapes. This one is known as a cactus variety. It's a spiky one, so cactus is a good name for it. The petals on this one aren't quite as spiky. This is known as a semi-cactus. Within the cactus class, there is a subdivision of varieties that have split petals. Can you see that on this one, the ends of each petal has got a split in it? They haven't gone like that, like some people's hair gets split ends. They were actually like that when they grew from the seed. And they've now got an official classification. They're known as fimbriated varieties. Or in America, I think they're called laciniated. I can't deny they're very pretty, but they do have a tendency to collapse when it rains on them. Most of the larger decorative sorts tend to have petal formations that are less formal, more open, like this one called Wanda's Capella, one of my favourites. Whereas lots of the small and miniature decorative sorts tend to have much more formal petals like this, neatly compact. Though there are some small decoratives that are far less compact, like this one. This one's called Hillcrest Firecrest. The final type that I want to tell you about is called the collarette. It's like a single dahlia, open centred, but it's got an extra set of florets around the middle. I'm not overly keen on this sort, but I think this one called Pooh is a particularly good example. Easy to grow too. As with anything else in life, there are some varieties that just don't fit into the normal categories. There's one here called Sandia Melody. It's now classified as a water lily, presumably because it looks like a water lily. I think they're very beautiful. So what do I look for when I'm buying a new dahlia, or even more important, deciding whether or not I'm going to keep it for another year? Well, while I can't deny that I'm drawn very much to the larger semi-cactus sort, like this one called Vitamin Superba, I do try to keep an open mind, so I buy all sorts of different shapes and sizes. In the main, I'm drawn to brash, bright colours, not the paler sorts, though I do keep a few pale sorts just to act as a contrast. The first thing I look for is lots of flowers. This one's called Winholm Diane, and as you can see, there are a load more blooms coming. A possible downside to a variety that has lots of flowers is that the stems can be weak, so that the blooms don't hold their heads up right and they fall over. This particular variety doesn't have that problem. Strong stems. I like this one. Now, if you have a variety that has relatively weak stems, it is possible to strengthen the main bud by taking out the side buds like that. That's known as disbudding. You'll find then that the centre bud will remain strong. But over the years, I've found varieties that are strong enough to support the flowers without needing to disbud, and so I throw out the ones that do need disbudding in general, because I've not got the time to do that. I stick with varieties that are strong enough on their own. I also look for varieties that have a fully double centre. I don't like them when they have a green centre or they go open centred after a couple of days. Here's one of my own varieties that I grew from seed a couple of years ago. I've kept it because I like the colour, but I'm afraid that I'm going to have to throw it out because it's always got that horrible green centre. It's not an attractive look, I don't think. And here's another of my own raisins which I'm afraid I'm going to have to throw out. The stems just aren't going to be strong enough to support the bloom. Now, as I think I've mentioned before, I tend not to buy my dahlias in plastic bags from a garden centre. Rather, I buy them as rooted cuttings from specialist nurseries. The main demand for dahlia cuttings comes from guys who like to enter their dahlias for exhibition and win prizes. Varieties come into fashion and then go out as people get fed up with growing the same thing. So the market tends to vary quite a lot from year to year. Some varieties that I bought only a couple of years ago that are no longer available. That's because partly in the UK the number of specialist nurseries has reduced in the last few years. But also, if a particular variety doesn't do particularly well in exhibition, the demand for it drops, and so the nurserymen replace it with something new. Bear in mind, there are lots and lots of new varieties coming on the market each year. So I'm very conscious that I can recommend a variety that grows well in my garden, and you might not be able to find it on the open market. And quite a lot of the varieties are only available in the United Kingdom anyway. They've never been exported as far as I know. Obviously, as I talk about the dahlias I do like, there are going to be plenty of dahlias that I don't particularly like and won't be growing again next year. Now, I'm not going to tell you about these dahlias. It's not the right thing to do, I don't think. For a start, my tastes are different from other people's, but also my garden has certain conditions where certain varieties might do well and others don't, but other people's have different soil conditions, different light conditions, different temperature conditions. A dahlia that doesn't do well for me might well do very well for them. Now, the first variety that I'm going to recommend is one called Western Pirate. It's a miniature cactus. I would recommend it to anybody for any use. It wins lots of prizes in the shows, but it's also a brilliant garden variety. Lovely colour, lots of flowers, easy to keep over winter, easy to get started in the spring. This is a variety called Summit Festival. I'm not sure whether it's a decorative or a water lily, but it's beautiful colour and it makes a massive tuber, so it's relatively simple to grow. Recommended. This is a small semi-cactus called Shandy. It's a salmon colour. I've been growing it for years. It's quite an old variety actually. I don't know how easy it is to acquire it these days, but I recommend it. It's not so easy to keep, but I do love it. One of the simplest dahlias to grow is this red and yellow miniature cactus variety called Western Spanish Dancer. It produces great tubers. It's hard to kill it off really. Now this pink beauty is a small decorative called Hillcrest Divine. It's not the easiest to grow because it's difficult to keep the tubers, I've found, so I always keep pot tubers, but I think it's so beautiful it's well worth the effort. This is a waterlily variety called Gwyneth, beautiful orange. It wins loads of prizes and it's quite easy to keep as well, so I always grow a few of these. Now a job at this time of the year that I consider to be vital is keeping the dahlias tied up closely to the stakes. Although some people would consider that I overstring these, I can't afford, when I know people are going to come and look around the garden, to have them flopping around in the wind and breaking. So this one needs doing up. There it is, an extra piece of string, and it looks like it's going to need some more in a day or two. I like my dahlias to be highly strung. Now this small semi-cactus is called Golden Impact. It's one of my favourite dahlias of all time. I just love the way the orange outside of the petals contrasts with the yellow centres. The only trouble is it's really difficult to overwinter because it produces very, very small tubers. They're long thin things which tend to break and they just rot over the winter. So I have to keep pot tubers. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to get a cutting going, so I've not even got a pot tuber this year. So whether this one's going to be around next year, I don't know. I'm hoping to find an alternative source for it, because if I lose it, I'll be very disappointed. This is Blackjack. I get more comments about this dahlia than any other in the garden because of its fantastic colour. It's the darkest red large semi-cactus and it grows about 6 foot for me. If you can get one, get older one, I would say. This is a medium semi-cactus called Canora Sunset. Fabulous colour, isn't it? It does tend to have weaker stems as the season goes by, but I think it's worth keeping just for the colour alone. This is a miniature cactus called Geoff Hercules. Strong stems, I quite like this one. Another salmony coloured miniature cactus is this one called Rycroft Pixie. It's similar to Geoff Hercules, but it's got a yellow centre. Blighton Softer Gleam, an orange and yellow small decorative, wins lots of prizes and it's great in my garden. Similar in colour to Blighton Softer Gleam is Rycroft Delight. I've talked about this one in my previous videos because it's the tallest growing dahlia that I have. It grows to about 8 feet tall, has lots of flowers and the stems are very strong. Highly recommended, but unfortunately, so far as I know, it's no longer available from any nursery in the UK. Don't know whether it's available overseas. But I love it. I'm keeping lots of pot tubers because I can't do without this variety. Lots of the salvias are looking good now too. This one's called Cerro Potosi, next to Wendy's Wish. Peter Vidgeon, this is a good one. Royal Bumble, and I really like this one. It's called Dyson's So Cool Pale Blue. This one's called Amethyst Lips. Jury's out on this one because so far some of the flowers are totally white, which is not what's supposed to happen. Outward facing fuchsias are also starting to look quite nice. This one is Waltz Jubiltine and this one's Pink Fantasia. A multiple prize winner in the UK is this White Charlie 2, a medium decorative. It does have a tendency to mark in the rain, but it's a fabulous flower. I've talked about this one before, but I'm going to mention it again because it's such a fabulous dahlia. Wander's Capella, giant decorative, but look at the number of flowers that are coming. And look at the strength of the stems. It'll keep flowering all summer long, this, producing huge flowers. I love it. The jury's still out on whether I've got the combination of my blue Verbena rigida and my yellow Argyranthemums right. It's difficult to get the timings right. Will the yellow ones finish before the blue ones are all out? Quite a few of the blue ones have not started flowering yet. This is a variety called Parkland Rave. It's a small cactus variety, pink with a yellow centre. Highly recommended. I've been growing it for quite a few years. It grows to about 4 feet tall. Easy to grow too. I was given this variety by a lovely guy called Les Stothard, who grows all the Blighton varieties. It's called Blighton Cavalier. I don't think it ever made it onto the market. I think it wasn't considered good enough for exhibition, but it's certainly good enough for my garden. I think it's great. Sunshine Pole is a yellow medium decorative which I like. It has plenty of flowers. It might not be the strongest stemmed in the world, but it's still a nice garden flower. This cactus dahlia is called Western Melody. It was given to me by the lady that raised it. It never got onto the open market, I suspect, because it fell between the sizes of miniature and small, so that it didn't fit into one of the classes. So it would never become popular. It's great in my garden though. This is a dwarf growing variety. It's called Melody Swing. Highly recommended, although I don't think it's available anymore. I don't know why, because I think it's a fabulous dahlia, and it's such a brilliant tuber maker too. The other job you need to do at this time of year is to keep dead head in your dahlias. This one's going open scented, so it's past its best. And that one there is well past its best. Now I'm not going to give you yet another talk about how I deadhead my dahlias. I've done a separate video last year called How Geoff and Heather Deadhead Their Dahlias. If you're interested, take a look at that. I think you'll find it quite amusing. But just to prove that I practice what I preach, there are the deadheads. And that's where I took them from. Look at Cynthia Houston. Giant decorative, what a colour. I don't think it ever became popular in the UK, probably because it's between a cactus, semi-cactus and a decorative. It doesn't fit into either category really. But I wouldn't be without it. It's great because it only grows to about 3.5 feet tall, so it sits right at the front of the bed and produces a great display. This is a fabulous tall growing variety called Homatland. It was produced in Austria by a guy called Peter Hasselhofer, who grows all the Happet varieties. I've got quite a few of the Happets, I like them. Now that Britain's left the EU, to import from the EU you will need to pay for cynosanitary inspection, which is quite expensive, I understand. So it's unlikely I'm going to be able to import any more Happet varieties, which is a great shame. This is the first bloom of a small decorative called Cheval Megan. It wins lots of prizes in the UK. Lovely colour, it doesn't fade. I think this one's been nibbled by a slug or something because all the tips are a little bit distorted. The rest will be a lot better. Grows to about 5 feet tall. Good variety. The final variety that I want to talk about in this episode is Mary's Joe Manda. It's classified as a miniature ball because the petals reflex right round the back. So it's actually ball shaped. Now if you wanted one of these, Mary's Jamanda should be easy to find. It wins loads and loads of prizes, and it's still very popular because it's it's an easy plant to grow, but it's so beautiful. Although that one wouldn't win any prizes, would it?
There'll be another episode at the end of the month when Geoff will be able to talk to you about all the new dahlias that are out.
Yes, that's right. I'll have more to talk to you about, particularly some of the taller growing ones, which are always some of the latest to come into bloom. By the way, in the comments at the bottom of this video, I've written the names of all the varieties that I've spoken about in this video. Bye for now.